SVC Media.
Welcome to the iGaming Daily Podcast, analysing the news from the betting and gaming industry all over the globe, supported by Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming market.
DraftKings has made its first major move into the prediction market space, announcing the acquisition of Railbird, a CFTC-licensed exchange, and the incoming launch of DraftKings Predictions, a new mobile app for entertainment and financial markets. Meanwhile, the NHL has become the first sports league to enter an agreement with prediction market apps, penning deals with both Kalshi and Polymarket. Welcome back to iGaming Daily, brought to you by Optimove, the creator of positionless marketing and the #1 player engagement platform. Joining me, Charlie Horner, for this one today is our managing editor, Jessica Welman. Jess, I did say it was iGaming Daily, but I should probably have said Prediction Markets Weekly.
Basically.
How's things?
It never stops. Although I think today we get at least a break, full disclosure, today being a Thursday, the U.S. news is going to be all about these illegal gambling rings in the NBA. So I at least get a 24-hour break, I'm hoping, but we'll see.
Indeed, we'll see. And that is, as we record, it's a very much a live breaking story. So I'm sure we'll come back and cover that one at some point. And you can read about it on SBC Americas regardless. But yeah, Jess, DraftKings made a big move this week. They have announced a deal to acquire Railbird. Could you just outline the terms of the acquisition and what the deal is here?
So, we don't know for sure exactly the terms. Sportico is reporting that it's $50 million upfront with the potential to be as much as $250 million in total. So I think that actually feels like kind of a bargain, given what you can potentially get out of this. Listen, is it a risk? Yes. Is the upside tremendous? Yes. So, given that the scope of the deal, I think that this was just a very smart decision by them. Railbird recently approved by the CFTC to offer the same kind of stuff that Kalshi, Polymarket, Polymarket's not in the US yet, but Kalshi, Crypto.com, etc. offer. So being able to do that is huge. The question just remains, when do they do it? What does it look like? Will it include sports?
Yeah, the question on everyone's lips. But yeah, look, Railbird might be familiar to our US listeners, but perhaps not for our European and global listeners. So could you just give us the overview of them? Are they just a Kalshi, a Polymarket alternative?
They're a designated contract merchant market. I'm sorry, all of these financial terms just bleed. They're a DCM, which is the platform that you need to offer event contracts and swaps. For example, Prize Picks got an FCM, which is you can partner with a DCM, but you can't actually offer it yourselves. So it's different than what Prize Picks was granted by NFA, for example. Honestly, it's a fairly new one. It's only recently been approved. The first time I'd heard of it was honestly this summer when the rumors were swirling that this deal was happening. But beyond that, I don't think it has that much of a footprint in the United States so far.
Well, that's quite impressive that they've managed to go sort of fairly low key off most people's radar, and then they are sold off to DraftKings for, potentially $250 million. That's not bad going.
Fintech is crazy, man.
Yeah. Look, a few months ago, or maybe about a month ago or so, we spoke about FanDuel's agreement with the CME Group, and we basically said this is FanDuel Flutter getting to the front of the queue when it comes to prediction markets and being that a part of that group of operators who are looking to chase this sort of opportunity. Has DraftKings joined them at the front of the queue, overtaken them, or is it still behind them?
Honestly, Underdog is the one who's just out the gate on this already. They discovered I don't know the full story. They are able to host Crypto.com event contracts within their app. I have seen what it looks like. You can put it together with your fantasy picks. If it wins, it can fund your fantasy pick. Like it's together. They are not an FCM, but through this technical partner designation, they felt legally comfortable enough to move forward with this. So like Underdog is the one who's front of the line, right? And then I think Prize Picks is right there with DraftKings and FanDuel in terms of being ready to go. I think Prize Picks and Underdog too are also just in largely a better position in that they don't have to worry too much about losing important licenses for getting into this, which is something we should discuss more as we work through this segment.
Yeah, sure. DraftKings has done this acquisition with the view to launching DraftKings Predictions, this new mobile app for prediction markets. We referenced the question earlier, but is it going to feature sports?
Good question. Initially, based on the release, it kind of reads like no. It would be more kind of pop culture, things in the news kind of things like, will Trump wear a blue suit in the State of the Union? Because nothing has economic consequences quite like what color suit the president wears for speech. I think FanDuel similarly is walking that language line specifically because the growing list of regulators saying, listen, you pull the trigger on sports, we potentially pull the trigger and pull your license. So I think what they're doing is positioning themselves to be ready to go within days, maybe within a day. As soon as they are given the ability to turn on sports, they're gonna have it ready to go. My assessment of the situation is in the short term, they'll probably steer clear. Maybe they dabble though in some of the stuff that isn't available in a lot of sports books, like who will the next coach at Penn State be? Those sorts of things that are technically not sports bets that most states, I think there may be a couple that are a little more lenient in terms of like next coach, that kind of thing. But as we talked about like Gatorade color and these sorts of like tangential bets, maybe you see some of those, but I don't think you see the ones that are tantamount to the spread, the money line, and the specific like performance props.
Interesting quirk. This is a little bit of a left field turn, but that you mentioned that next coach bets aren't so prevalent or popular in the US.
I don't think they're legal in most states. In most states, they would tell you that's not a sporting event.
Oh wow! Well, here in the UK, as soon as a coach is fired from right? A team, that's the first market that and all it leads the news coverage is who's the favorite with the bookies.
Yeah, so I mean those kinds of ones have always been a bit of a gray area, and there are some states that are more lenient than others. The same way Oscars betting, you kind of have to go state by state on how much you can do that. But even when living in Kentucky where I can't bet on the Oscars, drive to Indiana where I can bet on the Oscars, you get like a couple $100 down. And the key to these is regulated sports books keep them very, very, very limited because, I mean, to us, it's wackadoo that you guys do this. The same way it's like crazy that you can like bet on like who's going to die in whatever season of White Lotus. Like this is information that it's not yet to be determined. It's determined. Somebody wrote it. Hundreds of people filmed it. Like plenty of people know the answer to this, that it's crazy to me that you can even bet on it, you know? But like, that's kind of been one of the weird quirks about the prediction market too, is like a lot of these controversies amount to like, well, this is clearly like, there's clearly insider trading happening here. You saw with like the Nobel Peace Prize markets shifting really late in the game, like, and they're just, it's like a feature, not a bug, to use that phrase. They seem to like that, Kalshi and the like, whereas in sports betting, we've been trying adamantly to keep that out of the ecosystem. So maybe this is a place where you can play elsewhere. We've gotten wildly off topic, haven't we?
A little, but I think it's still relevant.
I mean, but I think that's where you're going to see some of the interesting stuff happen and then really walk the line.
Yeah, okay. Let's bring this back then to this acquisition and to DraftKings and FanDuel a little bit. It's interesting that you think it's a play to walk the line, because DraftKings, FanDuel, Flutter, huge listed entities, all of the responsibilities to shareholders and public listing and stock exchange laws that go with that. What do these deals and these agreements tell us about this prediction markets vertical and the fact that these huge listed companies, and all win with Prize Picks as well, feel confident enough to go down this route?
I don't know if confidence is the word I would give. This is just tactical. If you see that somebody is coming in and doing something that is taking place and eating into your business, you're going to say, I mean, Jason Robbins said, he's like, I would be derelict as a CEO to not notice that this is happening and position myself to potentially take advantage of it. But as I mentioned earlier, we have regulators in Arizona, Nevada, Ohio, and Michigan. I think there may even be more that have said, if you go sports, you risk everything. Now, Nevada, DraftKings isn't even in there. FanDuel's just a supplier at a retail casino. Arizona, decently big state. Ohio, huge sports betting state. But the real key here is Michigan. In Michigan, it's not just we take your sports betting away, because if they do that, in theory, they could just roll out sports contracts, right? In Michigan, FanDuel and DraftKings have online casinos. It is the biggest online casino state, I think. Like, it's a very substantial sum of money. You lose online casinos, that's smarts, and you can't fix it with prediction markets. So that's why I think they're not going to pull the full trigger on sports until they hear something in these court cases, something on the legal front, the CFTC saying, we believe this is okay. I think they're going to need an indicator like that before you potentially jeopardize something like your online casino license. And it's why you see that Caesars and BetMGM or MGM are getting nowhere near this, because, like, you think it's bad enough to lose your online casino license. We will suspend your brick and mortar casino license is like DEFCON 1. So that's kind of why there's tepid levels of reaction here, and Prize Picks and Underdog are pushing more than anybody else, because it's like, oh, shrug, we lost our fantasy license. Like, that's on the tiers of things. That's the one that you can just be like, oh, darn, we can't do fantasy in Arizona anymore.
Well, it's famously going to be a long time before we do get any legal clarity on this. So all we can say at this point is watch this space. And Jess will take a quick break, and then we'll come back and take a look at what the NHL is doing with prediction markets.
SBC Leaders connects the gambling industry's top-tier operators and associations to share the best ideas, collaborate on solving the biggest issues, and push innovation throughout the betting and gaming industry. If you're an operator and want to join the discussion, visit sbcleaders.com for more information.
Welcome back to iGaming Daily. We're talking all about prediction markets once again, and a slightly surprising story hit our inbox at the news desk this week when the National Hockey League announced that it didn't do just one deal with a prediction market operator, but it did two, and one of which isn't even in the United States. Jess, what's the story here?
The NHL it was a very hold my beer kind of moment where they announced a dual partnership. We're going to have not one, but two official prediction markets of the NHL, and they are going to be Kalshi and Polymarket. Now, I will point out, as Tom Nightingale will tell you, Canadians love their hockey. So Polymarket, it's not as insane that they're not quite in the US. They're baiting right now. It is a matter of when, not if. But, like, I give them a little bit of a pass on that, in that, like, you do have a very large Canadian contingent in this league, that it's not the wackiest thing ever to have something that's not operational in the US. It is kind of wacky that, listen, you look historically at the leagues and how they feel about people who are not in the league making money off the league. They've had some negative, staunch things to say. So it is a little bit wild that out of just kind of the white blue nowhere, NHL is just like, you know what? We're in on this. Let's do it.
Yeah. Look, we can see what Kalshi gets out of it. We can see what Polymarket gets out of it. But as you say, Jess, it's really surprising considering that it's not even 10 years ago that the leagues were completely against sports betting as well. So why has the NHL done this deal? Why is it happy to embrace prediction markets?
I mean, it's a good question. Listen, the NHL has been, they've marched a bit to their own drum more than other groups. If you think about the Las Vegas Golden Knights, that was a group, they were the first ones to say, we're just going to put a team here and you can deal with it and it's fine. You know, they are willing to take more risks in that respect. But they hadn't really said anything about prediction markets that I'm aware of prior to this. And you think back to like the post-PASPA era, I don't recall like Gary Bettman being at the forefront of arguing against sports betting, that they have just been a little less proactive in this and a little more willing to kind of try things. That of the leagues, I guess I'm not surprised that if one of them did it, this is the one I would have guessed would. I am still just a little bit surprised that they're willing to do this, given what we talked about in the previous segment about like insider trading and that sort of thing, because like the oversight's not really there the way it is in sports betting.
No, exactly. As we've said on the show quite a few times, you can essentially self-certify the markets with the CFTC. You just pop it in a field in a spreadsheet, and there you go. It's a market. The NHL has a deal, a sports betting deal with BetMGM. Now,
T-Mobile Arena and the Las Vegas Golden Knights are like basically embedded inside an MGM property.
Exactly. So I don't want to talk for BetMGM, but I can't imagine they'll be too happy about the NHL having not one but two prediction market partners.
You know what though? Like we've seen this too, though, that I'm sure DraftKings and FanDuel didn't love that various MLB teams would partner with Underdog and Prize Picks. Granted, this is the league and not a team, so it is a bit different. But yeah, I'm guessing there's an unhappy phone call that has taken place regarding this, given MGM's pretty staunch stance that this is not legal and it is not okay. And like I said, you know, MGM is deeply invested in the Golden Knights and hockey, and so it's interesting. It's certainly one to keep an eye on, and I wonder kind of how much they got a heads up. I think too, it's not just about like promoting the product. The big thing here, and I think Kalshi and Polymarket, you saw in their reaction to this, they realized this legitimizes the whole thing. You know, this group has rubber stamped and said, yeah, of course this is okay. And being able to take that like optics victory lap is so big. You know, like, yeah, it's nice that they can use rights and marks and things like that in their contracts. But the fact that like a group that is arguably affected by this in a negative way is saying, nah, we like it is, ooh. I mean, I don't think you're going to suddenly see like filings in all 7 court cases. Hey, the NHL says this, okay, shut her down. We're done here. But it definitely changes the optics of a lot of things.
Yeah, they're going to get some really strong PR out of this. But I just find it really interesting that the NHL are willing to risk their reputation on this.
You know, I tweeted this when the news came out because I was just like, do you guys remember when the Vegas Golden Knights announced a deal with a Mexican tout service? Because that had happened a couple of years ago. They announced this, and then all of us in the press kind of like are like, I'm sorry, is this what we think it is? And then like a day later, the Knights had to like cancel it and be like, just kidding. We're not working with them. Our bad. We're sorry. That like it came to mind again. Again, that's a team. This is a league. It's very different. But like you have to wonder if maybe the vetting process is a little less rigorous in the world of hockey than it is other places.
Yeah, definitely. Look, I want to close this with a slightly tongue-in-cheek question, but I mean, considering the U-turn on sports betting, then, you know, it might not be so surprising. But do you think this deal signals that sports leagues are eager to embrace prediction markets and specifically them moving into the realm of sports?
I think that they are like DraftKings and FanDuel. They are going to keep on top of everything in terms of what options are available to them to make money. We have a story on SBC Americas that went up this week with comments from Adam Silver, the NBA commissioner, that he was on the Pat McAfee show. Obviously, the season started this week, where he kind of said he feels like sports betting's gotten a bit out of control. Where he has said, we've gone to our partners and said, can you pare down? Some of these props are stupid. Can you please get rid of them? Can we please kind of put some guardrails in place? And keep in mind, Adam Silver was one of those people that in the era where PASPA was being repealed, came out and was very supportive of sports betting. I think, given the lack of guardrails, and given the fact that I am currently watching Twitter explode with an NBA betting controversy, just opening the door for the lack of oversight and stuff, I just don't see. And you've seen many other leagues have written to the CFTC, have written to lawmakers, have done things. The NHL is not one of them, but the NBA has been, the MLB has been, the NHL has been. I think they're an outlier. And I think that these guys are not going to get into it. I'd like to bring up one last thing, even though I know we're over time and my producer is going to be angry with me, but I think a conversation we need to have too is, how does Genius Sports and Sport Radar feel about this? Because my understanding is Sport Radar does supply Kalshi with some version of official data. And I wouldn't be surprised if Genius had those kinds of deals. However, the people who are making the most money out of these league data deals are those companies. And if what they're doing for Kalshi is significantly less expensive, which I believe that it is, there was a great article in Sportico with Dan Bernstein, who does great work around prediction markets, looking at this. You kind of wonder where they start to get involved and are like, nah, man, this is not where you are not messing with our sports betting data. This is something that we are going to call up the leagues and explode their ears if they don't fight back to protect the terms of this deal. And I'm mad that we didn't get to it first, but I think that is an extremely important angle to be aware of on the sports betting side as we move forward.
Mm-hmm. A whole can of worms there that are ready to be opened, and I'm sure we'll investigate that one as these deals come to the fore even more. But Jess, thank you very much for your time today. Really interesting discussion as always. And if our listeners want to read more about all of the stories that we have mentioned on the show today, we'll leave links in the show notes. But in the meantime, thank you very much for listening to iGaming Daily, and tune in tomorrow for another episode to keep up with all the latest developments from the global gambling sector.
Thank you for listening to today's iGaming Daily podcast, supported by Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming market. If you want to find out more about some of the subjects raised today, feel free to explore any of the sites in the SBC News Network, or check out the latest edition of the SBC Leaders magazine. Happy reading.